Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest Cyber Social Hubcast. I know we haven't done one in forever. It's been a minute. So much for my New Year's resolution last year to do these every week. Life just got busy, and the business got busy, and which is a good thing. I guess it's a good problem to have, but not for you guys, unfortunately. So we're gonna try our best to do these not every week. I can't promise that just because, but at least my goal is to get maybe two in a month for sure, one in a month on these as we go through the year 2024. We had some anyway, Happy New Year to everyone as well. And for those of you who are members of Cyber Social Hub, we had a goal just internally with the staff. Not that anyone really cares other than the staff. Is like, hey, do you think we can get 1,500 members, 1,500 members in 2023? And we set out to do it, and we ended up getting 1,520, I think was the final number. I'm not looking at the number in front of me, but I think that was it. And it's freaking awesome. We were very happy about that. So welcome to all the new members. If you're new tuning in, make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. And join us on the other social channels that we have. We are broadcasting out to LinkedIn, X, try not to say Twitter anymore, Facebook, and of course here home at YouTube is where we're at. And if you have joined us on one of the other platforms, then the chat, because you can chat with us live, I can see it, but it only happens on Facebook or YouTube. And then Facebook, I can only see what you type. I can't type back. I don't make the APIs, but you know, it is what it is. But so anyway, welcome for hanging out. I appreciate it. And our new 2024, it's just going to be as much as crazy as it was in 2023. We're here. And if you want to be a guest, by the way, on Cyber Social Hubcast, let me know. Kick me an email, kevin@cybersocialhub.com. And we talk just about anything, really. If you can pull or have an investigation with anything electronic data-wise, even OSINT conversations. I'm not the best at OSINT conversations, I will admit, but I can hold my own. I can hold my own there. So yeah, kick me an email. Right now, I need to go over here to the sponsor because we do have a sponsor, our friends over at, that was a whole camera shift. That was set up properly. Good job, Kevin. Over at MSAB. That's right. They sponsor, obviously, Cyber Social Hub. What I want to do is tell you about how they bring exciting news to you all the time, and this one's no different. If you've ever wondered what is contained inside the RAM of that Android device that you're looking at, which if you've never looked at an Android device, then you're saner than I, because I try not to do no forensics anymore. And, you know, if you're looking at especially like 12 gigabyte of data, it surely is going to contain some potential diamonds in there. Well, you don't have to wonder anymore. If it's an unlocked Samsung device that lands on your desk, then XRY will help you get the keys to access that potential treasure trove of data, which is pretty awesome, right? Because there's nothing more frustrated than a locked device. So if you do have a locked Android device, don't fear, we got you. XRY Pro will gain access and serve up that RAM goodness for you to hunt through and find all those diamonds in your dumpster. Make sure you guys get a hold of those folks over at MSAB. If you got any questions, it's msab.com. And you can discover how amazing, unique capabilities of their tools and products. And I tell you what, when I see these guys at trade shows, I hang out with them a lot. Yeah, they're just a fun group of people, really down to earth. And I know relationships are really part of how this industry is built. And those guys really got it down well. They do a good job. So MSAB, go check them out. I want to slide back over here. Matt's in the chat already. Look at him sneaking out of the green room. Can't contain that boy. He's hiding back there. I'm just going to bring him up then. What the heck? There he is. Hey, Matt. How are you?
Hey. Good.
Wanted to make sure. Trying to get my volumes adjusted.
I was just posting this over to our Discord server to let everybody know that we're live. So.
Yeah, there's William Aycock. It says Matt is a stud. He's a fellow Texan, isn't he? Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is. He's about an hour, I think, maybe an hour and a half away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's near. I'm in Austin, but he's near San Antonio.
Yeah. William's been on the show a couple times. Shown
Yeah, he's
some.
everywhere. He's always putting himself into everybody's business, basically.
He's
I
good people.
I had a hard time since ever since I went over to Belkasoft's website and I saw his smiling face on their front page. I was like, wow, I guess he's their new spokesman now.
He's such a good-looking guy. I mean, why wouldn't you hire William as a spokesman? That's my compliment to you, William. Don't forget that.
That beard alone is amazing, so that's worth being a
He's
spokesman.
humbling himself here. Sorry, we're gonna pick on you for a minute, Bill, because we got a whole hour to fill up here, and I don't know if we can do it. We're gonna try not to.
I'll find a way to fill up that time. So
Yeah, I think we can do it because I actually did. Believe it or not, I was not. So you guys don't see what happens in the green room. Literally just before we go live. Today's been a technology day from hell. The last 2 days. Anyway, there's issues going on that technology wise, I just want to some days, and literally. So to prep for the show, I've actually been doing it. That doesn't happen very often. That I do prep for the show. I usually just jump on and start rattling away because I usually know the guest or the topic enough to get me through. This one, I figured I wanted to get right. I wanted to at least see. It was more of a test for me. It's like, hey, are my predictions going to come true? Can I come at the end of 2024 and say, ha, go refer to this episode that aired January 12th, and you'll see my predictions and Matt's predictions, and we're like the predicting gurus of this industry, which we know is not true, but hey.
well, it's interesting for me because I don't do the I don't do as much forensic work as I used to, so I'm not as quite in tune with all the all the trends on the analysis side of things. But I am very much more in tune with like the business side of stuff and like how I can sort of make some better predictions about how the industry as a business may move forward, or how we may see some vendors do some things over the next year or two or whatever. So that's kind of where my predictions are kind of focused, or less on kind of the specific forensic techniques and more about you know what do I think is going to happen in the industry going forward.
Oh yeah, that's definitely where mine is. I'm not smart enough to get way down in the weeds of
Yeah.
what new artifact or this and that. But that's what we're here to talk about is our predictions for 2024. And I'm hoping you guys have some as well that are hanging out in the audience and watching. Drop them into chat. Again, the only way we can see chat from Facebook, we can see chat from YouTube as well. If you're on LinkedIn or Twitter/X right now, you're talking to yourself. But I can go back later and see them. But come over to YouTube or one of the other channels and chat with us. That way you can get involved in the conversation. But I always try to go back over and review the questions later on those other networks that we can. So Matt, first, before we start, for those people that don't know about you and Monolith Forensics that's hanging out under your name, you can give yourself a plug here.
Sure. So for those that don't know me, I think most everybody here does know me, but for those watching in the future, watching the recording and don't know who I am, my name's Matt Danner, as it shows on the screen. I'm the owner and founder of Monolith Forensics, and basically we make pretty much one piece of software. It's called Monolith, and what Monolith is, it's basically a project management, case management, evidence management platform for digital forensics, e-discovery, and incident response teams. So basically, if you work in a forensics lab or you do any kind of DFIR work and you're still using spreadsheets to kind of keep track of all the work that you're doing, keep track of the evidence you're collecting, all that stuff, you should look into Monolith and basically see if Monolith is something that would basically better suit you than a spreadsheet. So it's I think I think we probably everybody that's watching right now may already be a Monolith user, but for those folks in the future, definitely take a look at it. It's a great platform, doing updates to it all the time. We're growing all the time, so it's a really cool platform. And you can reach out to me directly if you have questions. My email is just matt@monolithforensics.com. feel free to just shoot me an email with any questions or any thoughts you have about the product or anything else. Especially if you want to tell me how wrong my predictions are going to be. Even it's, so be happy. I'm more than happy to be told I'm wrong. So feel free to do it.
Yeah, we should probably put a big disclaimer in this that, hey, this is just for fun, by the way. And hopefully you guys have. I know Bill's probably got a prediction in there somewhere. I think he paid him to be here, really.
Yeah, in case the audience is aware, me and Kevin are not actually psychics. So you can't actually predict the future, in case anybody was confused.
Looks like you have another user. I think all your users just joined. That's all it is. Did you send a message out to your monarch users?
In our Discord server.
Oh, there you go.
Let people know.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm fighting this borderline of a cold yet, and anyway. So you want to go? Let's go. You want to go first? You go first.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see if I'm sure we're gonna have some intersections. I don't know how many you have. I've got 5 predictions here.
Ooh, you did a lot more than me. I only wrote down 3 because they were pretty big topics that I thought we could elaborate on. If not, then it's going to be a really short episode.
I'll go first, and I'll say the one that I think everybody will probably say, but I'm going to add some color to it.
Okay.
Right. Somebody this year, probably in most likely, in the forensics industry, possibly a vendor that already exists, is going to claim that they have AI built into their forensics. Right? I say, or that specifically to say claim, right? I want that to be, that's an important word there, because from a business perspective, because I run a company that exists in the forensic space, and I pay attention to sort of investment and VC and kind of AI, how AI does as a business proposition in general. But right now in the sort of software industry, like AI is obviously like a huge thing right now, to the point where people on the money side of things, like investors and venture capital and things like that, they're all super interested in how your company is utilizing AI in your product, and how your company is, what's your company's plan for growth or product-led development around AI. They don't necessarily always care what that AI is or what it's doing, but that's something that they're asking about. And I can only imagine, given the companies that are in our space, they're getting a lot of these same questions as well. So what does that mean? That means that probably in the next 12 months, somebody that you're familiar with, that you may already buy products from in our space, is probably going to come out with some kind of AI product. And what I would warn everybody against is ChatGPT is not the same thing as a platform that can do forensics for you, right? There's a significant difference. What ChatGPT is a large language model, which means it knows how to communicate thoughts and ideas through, speech, basically, and verbal communication. That's not the same thing as an AI platform that can look at look at the data you pulled from a phone and tell you something about it. You need something more specific than that. You need something called machine learning to basically feed a bunch of test data into a machine learning model that's going to take probably weeks, if not months, to train itself on, and then spit out a result. So what does that mean? That means if you're using artificial intelligence or machine learning in forensics, that means you probably have to have a lot of hardware to build some kind of AI model that can even do anything for you, which is really hard to ship inside of a typical install package that you might use from some of the vendors that exist today. So that kind of AI stuff is, and this leads into one of my other predictions, but that kind of AI capability is something that really pairs really well with cloud infrastructure, where a vendor can create a large cloud-based infrastructure that can handle all this hardware and processing power needed to generate machine learning models for things like forensics, and then basically make it a hosted available system that you can then utilize. So I don't know what form it's going to come in, but I just did predict that somebody's going to come out saying they have some kind of AI, if they don't already say it. And I would just advise as customers to be careful about how it's being promoted and marketed to you as a customer.
Yeah, I had that as my number 2. Because where I got my inspiration, I cheated a little bit. Well, not really. But I started because CES was this week, right? Was it this week?
Yeah.
CES. So I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos on CES, thinking from the investigator standpoint, it's like, how is this going to jack up our lives when it comes to what can somebody do bad with this that we're going to have to pull data out of this thing and go for it. So that's kind of some of my other stuff I have later on, but AI was in there, and I think it's more. And you already alluded to it, was the kind of the assisted AI investigation, because if you guys watched CES at all, you saw LG up on stage, and they redefined what AI means, right? Which was kind of funny because everyone's using, and I blame marketing companies. They're using AI for everything. That's not AI, right? Like if I do this, if it's not turned off, hold on, where's it at? No, it's turned off on my Mac, but my Mac has this crazy gestures. I think I turned it off. ECam like cuts them out,
Yeah.
and it does all this stuff. They say that, oh, that's AI. It's not AI. That's not AI. Don't call it that, because we'll think you're stupid. Because you got to remember, digital investigators, they're kind of the top of their game, right? And they see something as AI and they're just like, whatever. It's not really AI.
Right.
But what I think somebody will come out with, and I know there's a few companies that have some similar stuff out too, with AI and assisted, where it's real similar to like a chat GPT, where you can say, hey, go find things related to this. And you can actually say it. Maybe not this year because it's a little advanced. And it does, like you said, have to be cloud-based because it's got to be indexed by this thing. And it goes up and just pulls back or highlights all those pieces that could possibly relate to whatever the question that you asked it. I think someone is going to be crazy enough to come up with that thing. It'll be interesting to see how they implement it.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge to, because there's the other challenge to it also is for these systems to truly work. If you don't have a room full of 8 supercomputers that can crunch all this information, if you like think about it, if you're looking at data from a phone and you have a chat bot that's based on AI where you can ask it a question like that, hey, show me all conversations related to selling drugs or something like that. Well, that data has to be fed into an online platform to be processed first. Otherwise, the AI model won't know that it won't know what data is there. So you have this problem of processing power that builds into even just generative AI, which is what we're talking about when we come to ChatGPT. It needs that data to train on to know
Mm-hmm.
what to show you and what you're asking for. So there's another problem there, which most agencies are going to feel, most organizations in general are going to feel a little weird, and they're already feeling this way about just simply just shoving a bunch of data into ChatGPT through OpenAI's APIs, right? We're
Yeah.
already getting by lots of different publications for using their content to create this huge model in the first place. So there's all kinds of weird data problems with it, and it's just one of those things where I think, like you, someone's going to come out and say they have it, but I'm skeptical that it'll actually be anything useful. Is my point. I'm
It,
skeptical that it will, because there's just too many hurdles to get there right now.
yeah, there's a lot of claims. Now, I've seen a lot of crazy AI stuff as of late, because I did a talk at our own conference in December last month about it. So I did some research on it, and actually, where I got that the bulk of that information was from the marketing world, believe it or not, because they're on the cutting edge of how
Yeah,
AI can be used in forward-facing stuff, because that's what they're looking to do, is create content, try to do these things.
yeah,
And I was blown away with what's available, just commercially. I can go out and spend, I think it was $29 a month on this service that I showed called HeyGen, HEYGEN.
sure.
And it takes 2 minutes of you standing in front of the camera like this and talking the way you normally talk.
Yeah,
And it learns your voice, and
yeah,
can replicate you. And if you haven't seen that, the con's still posted. Go check it out. But it was scary. I just attended a webinar from them yesterday, and how they're doing. Have you ever seen? I'm sure you get, business owner, you get tons of sales emails.
oh,
People, hey, do you do this? Do you do that? Well, one of the things is like things like Loom, Jump Share, where these salespeople can go make a quick video, attach it to an email, kick it off to you. So what
sure.
they're doing is they're taking this AI now, and they only got to film themselves once, and it will
Yep.
automatically put the person's name, the business, and everything in the video as they're saying it, which I'm like, what? So freaky. Um,
Yeah.
freaky.
Uh, it'll be interesting to see how that long term catches on, because sometimes we see these really interesting technologies come out
Hmm.
that seem really novel at first, and then for whatever reason over time we all kind of realize, this wasn't that as interesting as we thought it was. So a good example is like drone technology, right? Like drones came out in like 2015ish or something, where that's where they got really, and they got real popular. Like everybody had a drone,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like, yeah, there's still people that have drones, but once the novelty kind of wore off, um, people kind of were like, well, I could buy this drone, but I'll just fly it around for a few minutes and get bored with it. And now drones are like used for like commercial applications most of the time, like construction and different things where you need to get aerial views of stuff for an actual commercial purpose or whatever. I'm not saying that'll happen with some of this AI stuff. I'm just saying like it'll be interesting to see as this stuff gets developed, like what turns into that kind of falls into that novelty sort of realm, and then
Mm-hmm.
which parts actually kind of float to like commercial viability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know we're probably going to jump back and forth between AI, and so that was your number one, and that was listed as my number two. The only reason I have something different for number one is because I think when you and I were talking when we met last week, the week before last,
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to come up with a couple ideas. I wrote this down, and I have no idea what it means. I'm hoping
Yeah.
it rings a bell with you. It says data capability in forensics tools. Do you remember saying anything like that? I jotted it down.
Oh yeah, I think that could have been something out. That was like a special project I think I was talking to you about. So it's
Oh,
like,
all right.
if I remember correctly, so it's like top secret, Kevin. Like that's
Oh, no, no, no. I wrote it down on our predictions. That wasn't a
okay.
top secret thing. You must be thinking of something else. I wouldn't do that to you.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Let me think. Data capability and forensic tools. I don't
All
know.
right. I don't know
Maybe
either. But so now I only have two. So we can't use that one because I don't remember why I
what's
wrote
your
it
next
down.
one?
Yeah. So my next one was interesting. Excuse me. I obviously have a Mac. I'm a Mac guy. I like them just because they rarely crash, rarely have driver issues, rarely have a lot of problems. This is me building up, waiting for a Windows person to go bonkers in chat, which they haven't yet. So we'll look down there and see. But one of the things I also like to do is I like to game. And I can't game very well on a Mac, or at least some games, most games, just not happening. So I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for alternatives other than buying this massive piece of add-on hardware I can plug into my Mac and use the external graphics for it, and even the game may or may not run. So I started testing it out, a service called GeForce Now. Are you familiar with the service? It's NVIDIA's
Is
essentially,
it is it like an online gaming
yeah,
platform?
yeah. So they have multi-$1,000 rig sitting in the cloud that I
Yeah.
just log into for, and I'm not doing a commercial for them. I do it because I like the game, and I don't own a Windows machine anymore. And games in VR and VMs don't, you know how that works. So I just log in and it streams this thing, and it's freaking beautiful. The stream that comes back, and I
Yeah.
have pretty good internet, so I don't have any issues with it. But everything that I do there is on their gaming rig, is up there. And at
Yeah.
first I'm like, is this going to catch on? But there are so many people using this system right now. Then, which I didn't even know, if you guys do a search for Amazon Luna, Luna, Amazon Luna, if you're a Prime member, you got access to some of the games for free. They have one almost identical to GeForce. Obviously, GeForce has a lot more games, but there's this old game I played called Control, which I played a couple years ago, I think on the PlayStation, and it's the same concept. Amazon has now deployed this thing. I logged in. It was a phenomenal experience. It was free. I didn't pay nothing, and I'm in there right away playing this game. Flawless. Everything I would do in that said game was obviously not on my system, but it was pushed up to a cloud. I'm thinking that as these systems get more advanced and people are cloud is becoming more and more, the gaming stuff that happens, especially with grooming stuff that happens within gaming, things like that, those investigating those types of platforms. Now, obviously, we already investigate cloud platforms, but those are two that I don't know if anyone's considered. Stuff that goes on there, stuff that might be said in the online stuff that happens. But it was pretty interesting. And obviously, I use GeForce now in combination with my Steam account, which I can move from system to system. So I'm not limited to only using GeForce's systems. I can take that because it's associated to my Steam account, which is a gaming thing, and move it over somewhere else if I want to. So it's awesome. That's what I think is also going to be a future point. I came across these. Well, Luna was just last week. I came across that one because GeForce now I've had for a little while now.
Yeah. Do you think do you think there's a specific growth pattern you're going to see in 2024 for that, or
now you want details? Man, I'm lucky to get the whole prediction right. Now I have less details on this thing.
You only have until December 31st. That's the window for you.
Oh, all right. So, no, I mean, I don't see it skyrocketing because I don't know. It's a very small community that obviously is aware of even these services in the first place, but it's a younger generation, right? Because I'm not going to go drop. I don't even know what the new NVIDIA graphics card is, but they're outrageously expensive, and sometimes they're hard to get a hold of. And they're updated how often? Every few months? I don't know how often they come out with it.
Yeah, well, I think the real interesting piece about it is you got to think you have a system now where you can run these really high, next gen, very heavily, hardware intense games, or a system like that. You can just run it on an iPad, right? Like you can play a latest AAA game or whatever and potentially just stream it to an iPad. So if you're someone that doesn't have a console or doesn't have a super awesome gaming PC, you can potentially, play a streamed version of the game to an iPad or something that's something that can just stream the data straight to your television or whatever without having to buy a $3,000 gaming rig or something. So there's potential. I can see myself potentially doing that if there's a game that maybe there's some kind of game that's on a PC and I just don't feel like upgrading my PC or something. If the stream and the latency are good enough, I could see myself doing that just to play a particular game or whatever.
Yeah, and then here's Luna. It's just luna.amazon.com, and here you can tell I was playing Control. It says continue playing, and literally I can click this. I don't want to mess up my bandwidth bandwidth I have going on right now, but you can play all of these things, and some of them are for free because Prime. Oops, I keep hovering over it. You see, it says Prime free to play, and who doesn't have Amazon Prime anymore? It's very few people, I think, in the world. And you can just jump on and play Lego Fortnite or Fortnite itself. If you don't have a gaming box or a rig, you don't need it. Just something that streams generally well. And
be great for hotels also, right?
Yeah.
Also could purchase it for their rooms. If you stay in a hotel, you could have a system like this, or your kids can play if they're not. So you don't have to lug around their console or gaming PC or something, and have that instead of your pay-per-view, or whatever.
Yeah.
Videos.
So. Yep. So Luna. Now, according to, I just read a little bit about the specs. I wasn't going to do a commercial on it, but it'll play off of a Fire Stick, Fire TV and stuff too, which is pretty amazing. Obviously, I have a computer that I'm attaching with it, but I'm like, man, because I always hated to play, I play stupid games on iPad, iPhone, because they're basic, right? They don't have a lot of power to render these beautiful graphics and stuff like that. And I'm still always going to have my PlayStation 5 or whatever, 20, whenever that comes out. Who knows?
Yeah.
But just because the graphics, I mean, I'm streaming those graphics back to me. But imagine, it's no different than, I guess, logging into remote virtual machines. But, it was very select few doing that. This is has the potential to be very large. Amongst a lot of people in mass using virtual machines to achieve something. And in this case, it's gaming. And I see that as a possibility this year for sure of, hey, someone's going to have to investigate one of these platforms that request information from
well, it's going to turn into a cloud situation where you'll
Mhm.
have to issue a warrant to whoever the service, to Amazon or to NVIDIA or whoever's hosting the platform.
Yeah, and I wonder, man, I just wonder what you would get back. Now I'm curious as to like, anyway, if somebody does this, that's watching this at any point, and you have to serve paperwork or do an investigation on one of these services without giving up goods, obviously, let me know what type of information you can get. We'd be curious to see if that has to happen.
Yeah.
So far, I have not personally played any like quote unquote online games where I'm linking to other systems. I've all played single player games, but like Fortnite, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on there. I haven't played that one on this yet to see what it does. But interesting.
I mean, I still play games, but I'm really just super selective about the games that I play. So it's not that it's not that big of a deal to me to be able to have access to any game that's out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's potential. I could see for me, I could see there's a couple of if there's like I said, if there was a specific game that came out where I just don't feel like investing a lot of money into a PC to play it, like yeah, and as long as the latency is good and the the stream is strong or whatever, like yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely see myself using that for a month or so just to play through a specific game.
Yeah, that's that exact use case was a game I was interested in. I saw a lot of it called Starfield,
Yep.
but I think it was only was that an Xbox game for the longest time. Was it
Uh, I don't know.
not
It's
available on
Bethesda.
PlayStation? They were very limited release.
Yeah, I think they were on on everything, but I didn't play it, so I'm not super familiar with it.
I just started about a month ago, and I'm a game skipper. I'll play one for a little bit, and then I jump over, start playing another one, and then the time I go back over here, I forgot how the controls work. And anyway, it just one of those things. But I think those investigations could pop up on those cloud machines. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, I would not. I'm not. I'm going to be honest. I don't envy the investigators that have to work on those cases.
No.
There's a lot of cases to work on. It's going to be a lot of waiting and seeing what kind of data you get back. Um, all right. So should I go with my next one? My next
Yes,
prediction
go
here.
for it.
So I think this year we're going to see a significant rise in open source forensic tools. Um, for a couple of reasons. One is I think people like me are I'm doing more presentations and more talks about building, learning how to build your own forensic tools and learning how to code and things like that. And then I've just seen some other folks out there like Briggs and others that are starting to
Oh
put
man,
more
yeah.
effort into open source tools. And the big reason too is just because there's sort of a commercial and business reason for this also, which is we're seeing a lot of consolidation in the industry in the forensic market around the vendor software that's available to us. And because of that consolidation, and some other factors, you're going to see fairly hefty increases in prices across the board, I think, but more specifically towards the top end of the market. And that's just going to generate a lot of pressure, like a lot of pressure across the industry for people um, to find other ways to parse out data they're looking at or solve problems. The other issue too is just that since the dawn of time with these tools, they're always behind. And that's not anybody's fault. It's just the nature of building these types of systems.
Mm-hmm.
They're always behind, and there's always some data they don't parse or some data they don't parse very well. So people, and the other factor too is that the industry is growing, the industry is getting bigger. It's growing all the time. We're getting new folks in the field, especially younger entry level folks are going to be looking for ways to kind of make their mark in the industry and kind of differentiate themselves um, into a career path. So one of the best ways to do that, and one of the things I did, when I was working for various companies, is I would just, build different tools, build small little applications that did a very specific thing, and my teammates and coworkers would use it or whatever to do that specific thing. And I think you're just going to see more of interest in that from people of looking at, okay, what is there any other way for me to do this other than paying $7,000 for a forensic tool? And and frankly, like a lot of the stuff that we're doing in forensics can be done fairly if you know how to program, if you know how to write code. It's not terribly difficult write code to parse, especially if you think about mobile artifacts, right? Mobile forensics. Most of the data on a mobile phone, it's either going to be in a plain text file, a JSON file, or a SQLite database, right? This stuff is not that complicated to break down. Windows data and Mac OS data is a slightly different story because they have a lot more proprietary file formats. But typically, when we're talking about mobile data, they all use kind of the same data formats. So basically, once you write a parser for one, you've got a parser that, with a little modification, could probably work for everything. So because of that, I think it's just, if it doesn't happen, I mean, I would be shocked if we don't see a lot of it this year. But I do expect that to happen. I do think we're going to see a lot more, not only development in open source tools, but also a lot more interest. People are going to be a
Mm.
lot more just finding, due to pricing, budgets, and just general fatigue around, you know, I don't want to say around any specific vendor in particular, but just basically a fatigue over lack of choice in the market in general, where there's really only a handful of vendors and it's the same ones every time. And customers are naturally just going to start looking in different places for other options. So I think we're just going to see a lot more of that this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That'll be an interesting one to see how it evolves. We've kind of seen it, like you mentioned, in the past, kind of pop up sporadically here and there of people writing their own tools and things. And what Briggs is a big example of that. He's got how big is iLeap now, right? And it's got a couple variances of it now, right? And I don't remember all the variations he has.
Yeah, and if you didn't know any better, you would think it's a commercial product. The way
Yeah.
that they announce releases and they push updates to it and everything. They clearly put a lot of effort into it, to make it to where it works for everybody. And I think that's a good example where people will see that. And I'm saying this too by talking to people that I know in the industry that are starting to build their own stuff. They're starting to look into and teach themselves, okay, we have this random data that's always a pain to deal with. How hard is it for me to just write a Python script to parse this data out and put it into something that's easier to review, or something that's easier for the investigator to look at?
Mm-hmm.
Where for us, it's easy as digital forensics folks. We understand this data easy, and can easily review it. But my investigator colleague, it just has a hard time going through all this data like this. So I want to write something that helps me convert that data into something that's more digestible. Just things like that people are going to, once they learn how to code and they see what's possible, you're going to see that become a lot more popular, I think.
Yeah, this is actually a good segue when we're ready into my next one, and I'm going to try
Sure.
to find the video. And I know I kind of put this purposely just to kind of get your reaction as well on some of
Okay.
it. It was an announcement at CES this year. Again, like I said, I watched a lot of these. I thought I had bookmarked these, but they're actually on my iPad, which I left upstairs. Uh, that I was actually doing this research on. Anyway, I'm going to try to do it best from memory, and then I'll post it later, maybe in the show notes or something like that. And I can't remember who it was. All of the heads of all of these companies get up and everybody does a keynote, right? Everybody gets a keynote. If you're at CES, as much as you pay to be there, you should. But what one guy, and I wish I could tell you where he was from, he was talking about how coding this year was going to drastically change, because what they were going to focus on building was a mechanism with, of course, AI in it that could code for you. And literally, it's like Chat GPT. I mean, Chat GPT, you can go on now. At least, I don't know, version 4, I don't know about the past versions, you can say, hey, write a script for me in Python that will parse SQLite database with these fields, blah, blah, blah. And you can really get detailed with it. And it'll just write it. I mean, I think I showed that in my presentation as well. I'm stealing a lot of this research that I did back in November for this one, but I still think these are the way it is. So what this company was focused on was, hey, we're building the technology to let average people code something through AI. So
Yeah.
what you said was perfect. Like average Joe, I mean, I can code Python to a point. I had a nice Twitter parser until Elon Musk shut all down the APIs and made me pay for them, which I'm not going to do for something fun. But I can just tell it, hey, write a script that's going to parse a SQLite database for, Android phones to pull out all the text messages, and it'll do it for you. Done.
Can I show you something? Can I share my
Yes,
screen?
please.
Okay. So let me.
Hold on, I got to find a way I can let you share your screen here.
There's a
You've seen.
share screen button here. Can I click that?
There is, but I want to make it big. I want you to be big on the screen. So hold on, give me 1 second, and I will set this up in a preview real quick, and then I can let you do it here.
I don't think I can because Chrome on my MacBook doesn't have permissions.
Huh? Give it permissions.
Go. I may have to. Well, what I mean is I may have to close and return.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I got you in solo mode now. So when you're ready, we can do it. Or if you got to bail for a second.
Yeah, let me close out real quick, and I'll hop right back in. Is that all right?
Yeah. We'll be here. Maybe.
Problems. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it should be here. It should be here. So I'll talk about another prediction real quick that the way people get information and the way digital investigators have kept up on new information, I don't think it's anything new in our space. Oop, there's Matt calling right back. Now I got to program you back. Hold on a second. Back to live mode. Oh, there you go. It brought you back automatically. Cool. There's no audio now, but you're here. So that's all that matters. See what happens when you leave during a live show? And it just messed it all up. It's like my pre-show. I'll continue talking while you're getting your audio fixed. Anyway, while I was talking pre-show, I was not ready to go for the show. Like I was ready for my list, kind of, but technology-wise, I was not ready for it. I didn't have Matt's name up. It was my last guest's name still up there. I was like, rushing around trying to get it done. Literally 2 seconds for that countdown that you guys see before it starts went to 0. My audio, I was causing Matt an echo loop in here, and I finally got that resolved. Literally threw these headphones on last second and go. And sure enough, we fixed it and then hit live. I was like, whoo. So audio is just one of those things in life that kill you. What? You can hear me? I can't hear you. You're not talking. I'm not very good with charades. I'm really actually pretty bad. So if you guys ever at a party and you have to select me, don't. I'm not sure what you're saying. Oh, let me, I'll pull you off the screen. Is that what you're asking me to do? I don't know what you're asking me to do. We have a private type. Oh, my audio is off in the platform itself. Oh, no, you're not muted. Hold on, I'll turn you off. Now you're muted. No, you're not muted. All right, let me go back. Maybe it did. Hold on. Says my stuff's working. Let me go back into preview mode for a second. And we'll switch. Let me switch scenes and come back to this scene. Let me go back to like this scene here where it's just me. Now it should have muted you. You should see it that you are muted indeed, Matt, because I pushed him back into the green room. Now I'm going to pull you out. There's no mic symbol on my end. Oh, that's your browser. That's your browser not detecting. Yeah, oh, you're back now. All right.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was like the mute button was on, but there was just on the video preview window there was like a no mic symbol.
That's weird.
And like all my stuff was on. It was just something in the platform was.
I probably have to update it, and I haven't. I haven't updated the software about a month.
Okay. So, sorry about that.
No, now I'm ready for you.
Let me see if I can share this. Okay. I'm trying to share. Is it sharing anything?
It will momentarily. Hold on. I'm going to move to just you.
Okay.
And
is it not sharing?
It'll show you. There's you. Okay. No, I don't see. Hang on. It'll appear as a separate guest. No, I don't see it as a shared yet. Again, that's a permissions thing.
Yeah, it should have permissions now. Does not look like it wants to work.
Yeah, I got a small advantage on this end. Obviously, none of the stuff I'm on is browser based. It's all crazy
Yeah.
nonsense that's
So
happening.
anyway, I was going to show. I pulled up the our code editor, the sort of the editor that we use to write code, and it has we use something called GitHub Copilot. So what
Really?
it basically is exactly what you just described. So literally, it's like in the code editor itself as I'm typing, and this is
Mm-hmm.
another reason why I'm saying I think the open source thing is going to blow up, is that as I start typing code, it will autocomplete what it thinks I'm trying
What?
to write. Yeah, it's really nice. If I could share my screen and show it to you, because literally, like you were saying, like, hey, yeah, I'll be able to say, like, hey, write me a script that does this. Like, you can literally do that, like right now. Like, I can just say, I can literally type a comment, like in the whatever the script page is. I can type in a comment that says, write a function that generates a random color, and then I can press enter, and then I have this Copilot extension that's installed into the editor I use, which is called VS Code,
Mm-hmm.
and literally Pilot, which is an AI that runs on Microsoft servers, it takes in my comment and it processes it, and then it sends back a stream of information that's what it thinks is what I'm asking for. So basically, it has massively, when we write code for Monolith, for example, it's massively increased our efficiency, because there's so many times where there's just some weird thing that we're trying to figure out, and we'll just literally type in a comment and be like, write a function that does this,
Yeah.
and it spits out a fairly, and sometimes it's perfect, sometimes it's like not perfect, but it's still close enough to where instead of us spending 30 minutes to an hour figuring it out, it
Mm-hmm.
reduces it to 5 minutes, because that 5 minutes is just spent like refactoring the code it wrote just to match our particular situation. And it's like built right into the editor, where most of the time when you type, the best part about it is not just that it writes out entire scripts, but that it learns, not only, it's also studying the code as you're writing it too. So if you're writing a lot of like, as if you've already written like 5 or 6 functions related to the process you're working on, it will start to learn what you're doing based on what you've written. And as you're writing the next function, it kind of, a lot of times it's kind of scary how well it predicts what you're trying to do. It'll just autocomplete the rest of the function, knowing, oh, this is what you're trying to do. And it just like writes the code for you. So there's like this
Hmm.
autocomplete piece that it just makes writing code so much. Now, this is from a programmer's perspective, right? This is not purely from the no code. This is more like making our work a lot more efficient when writing code. But from your perspective, like, yeah, it would just be a matter of just wrapping this into a UI that has an input prompt where you, Kevin, could type in. I mean, you could do this with ChatGPT right now, right? You can just say, ChatGPT, write me a script that parses, you know, the downside to it is that you could ask it something like, "Hey, write me a script that will parse the text messages out of an iOS text message database." Right.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that ChatGPT is. This goes back to what I was saying about AI earlier. ChatGPT is a trained large language model. It doesn't necessarily know anything about the structure of an iPhone text message database. So it doesn't know the specific columns or the specific fields that are built into an iOS SMS DB. So you'd have to have a separately trained model that's been told, hey, here's what a database looks like for a text message database, and here's what it looks like to write a to extract the text messages out of that database. It has to be trained on that stuff in order to give you an appropriate response to that question. So
Hmm.
this is the problem presented with AI being built into forensic tools, is that you can't just take ChatGPT and plug it into a forensic tool, because ChatGPT isn't trained to do forensics. It's trained
Right.
on billions and billions of words and thoughts and paragraphs and articles from the internet, most of which don't have content that goes into this deep level of forensics. So you'd have to have a specifically trained AI that's specifically trained on different forensic concepts in order to give you that efficient feedback on analysis, on, or even on instructions on how to do things.
Yeah. And I agree with that. With that, I don't obviously chat GPT unless somebody somehow integrates their stuff with it. I'm sure there's an API or a train, but anyway, I don't understand how the whole thing. That's more of a your area when it comes to that. But it just fascinated me that I could sit here and basically just tell ChatGPT what I wanted, and it would fully write from beginning to end the softwares. That's their goal. I posted a link to one that this isn't the exact video I was looking at. This guy was funny, by the way. He made me laugh because he kind of mocks people that use the term AI, then it's not real AI, which I instantly liked him at that point. But I think there was one part in there that they talk about that. He called the guy a douchebag, but it just made me laugh.
We have to accept that AI now, the term AI is being used to,
oh God,
it's not being used as the specific like general intelligence AI anymore. Now it's just meant as a colloquial term, as in general using, AI is now just referencing any system that uses some kind of you know, learned or trained experience to generate an output, right? That's kind of what we're considering to be AI now.
mm-hmm.
So that's why now we have what's called general, AGI is now what they're calling what we classically used to consider AI, which is basically like, data from Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
That's now AGI, whereas just AI is now just all this ChatGPT stuff that we're working with.
Yeah, I guess I've always been under the impression because of the old shows, right? Not necessarily old. There's a bunch of them out there, but where AI eventually will kill us. I think most shows end that way, doesn't it? But pretty.
If we haven't killed ourselves yet, I think it's a pretty low chance that our AI is going to come along and do it for us.
Well, we will. We just haven't created the right AI to do it yet. It'll ultimately be. Now, there's a show. Where was that at? Was it on Prime? I got so many different streaming services right now. The Creator. It's called Creator. I don't know which service it's on, but it was actually good AI. Where no, I don't want to kill you. Humans, you're trying to kill us, and you made this stuff up, which was interesting. If you haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it for you. Go watch it.
Yeah, I think I'm not really too concerned about AI killing us. I mean, I think that's just a trope played up by movies, and because a movie about artificial intelligence isn't any fun if the AI is just super compliant and nice. And
yeah, I know.
it's not an entertaining thing, right? So all of our stories and media and movies is all based around AI going bad because that's a more interesting topic to think about. But realistically, it's sort of like there's no real evidence to suggest that's what would happen.
No.
It's all about incentives, right? So if we make if we truly make a true AI like AGI, right? There's so many more philosophical questions we have to answer when we get to that point, which is, okay, we've effectively just made a sentient being. What rights does that being have now? And like basically, if it is a sentient being, why would they want to destroy humanity? What incentives have we given them to do that, right? If they have some kind of sense of self-preservation like all the rest of us do, what have we done to them that makes them feel like we are a threat, right?
Yeah.
And so if we create these tools and they do, and I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. I think this is something that's going to happen like 500 years from now. I don't think we're anywhere near the capability of doing. There's just so many engineering problems with building, a general like, sort of sci-fi level AI that I don't think we're anywhere near that. But let's say if we were, that AI typically wouldn't be any different from any other human being in terms of sentience or thinking, which means it's going to have its own motivations and everything. And then, what incentives did we give this thing to where its decision-making process led to destroying humanity? Where it's obviously made a conclusion that it's more beneficial to exist in a universe where humans don't exist as opposed to coexisting with them. So it's just no different than any other humans that we interact with every day. Right?
Yeah. I saw this.
That's
funny. No, I agree. I don't think, honestly, I don't know, because AI learns, it has to be trained, right? it learns. If it learns the wrong thing, then I don't know. I'm torn about this whole thing, but I have to make a light note of it. I've seen this meme or this funny little video. I don't know where it started, either TikTok or something. I'm looking over my other screen for it. Have you seen the Terminator thing that came out in 1984? That video that
Maybe
says where Sarah Connor is telling, you know, what's his jig? Why can't I remember his name? Anyway, that she was, we don't have technology to do that yet. We don't have AI yet. He goes, well, it'll be about, you don't now, but in 40 years, this is 2024. Hello, do the math from, it's kind of funny. It made me laugh when I saw it, or 40 years.
Exactly with the first Terminator movie with a line in the first.
Yes,
Terminator
very
movie.
first one. It was like in 1984. It says you don't have that technology out now. It's about 40 years away. And we're like,
think about
wait.
think about 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick. When did that come out? That was in 1969 or something like that, or
Yeah,
like. And think about, by 2001, according to that movie, we're supposed to have these enormous ships that can traverse the solar system fairly easily, with life support systems and everything. And it's like, we're just not even, maybe if our collective civilization worked on that problem, and we all, as all 8 billion of us, put all of our time and energy into doing it, we'd probably do it.
yeah.
But realistically, like we're not even close to that, right?
No, no.
We can get a rocket into orbit around our planet right now, let alone just freely travel to another planet in the solar system.
Well, it's
So
scary. People can't. I mean, I was just watching a clip from the news the other day. People can't even stay off their phones to drive a car down the road without running into a snowplow. That happened up here in Ohio just last week. And I'm like, there's no hope. We're not getting spaceships. I was promised flying cars by 2020. Where are those? Not happening.
we have
Anyway.
to, well, it's just, like I said, it's all about incentives, right?
Yep.
Like, if we have the incentive to do it, we'll do it. But if the incentives aren't there, then there's no real, like, our incentives to go to the moon for the first time was because of the Cold War, right? That was the incentive. Once that incentive disappeared, suddenly our entire space program started to deteriorate, because the reasons for its existence stopped. Like, we were no longer in a space race. There was no more, and that's why, things started going more commercial for space, the space industry, because there was no cultural or social imperative to take part in a government-based space program anymore. That's why now you're seeing more of that commercial interest, where maybe there's a commercial interest to space travel now that makes more sense because the incentives are aligned. But that's how we should always look at it, because that's how humans do things. It's always based on incentives, and whether it's worth the risks, the energy, the human capital to achieve these things. It's not just something that we randomly do just because. It's because there's a pressure or incentive of some kind to follow it.
Yep, either survival or money or a couple other, whatever. What else? What else do you have on your list? Because I'm exhausted with that last one I just did.
Let's see.
If you have one.
I think this is one that people don't really think about enough. Because it's probably for, especially people in law enforcement. I think this is an uncomfortable topic because they don't want to think about this. They kind of hope it doesn't happen, but it's probably going to. I think we're going to start seeing some increased legal restrictions regarding access to data, especially, when it comes to law enforcement. And the reason I say that is because, basically, if when I talk to our, like, law enforcement customers opposed to our private sector customers, and then just being in the industry myself, working on both sides of it, how we manage and get data in civil cases is just dramatically different from how we do it in law enforcement, right? You're starting to see a change. Depending on what jurisdiction, you may see some of this already happening, but I think we need to start preparing ourselves in law enforcement. As a search warrant just gives you access to everything, that may not be the standard forever. At some point, the courts are going to start looking at and start catching up to the fact that, hey, our phones basically have our entire lives on it, right? And if you think, and there's always been this analogy of comparing a phone to a house, right? Of, like, okay, or a phone to a building or something, where you're executing a physical search. And what you may find is that just over time, you might see the courts starting to put more restrictions on okay, what can a search warrant actually be valid for in a search on somebody's phone or somebody's computer or whatever, where it may be like, well, the court may eventually catch up to the fact that we are smart enough as analysts, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're smart enough to know generally where the data is going to be. We've always had this caveat that, well, we don't know where it could be anywhere. We don't know where it's going to be. If we're being truly honest with ourselves, it's not really accurate. Like, we have a pretty good idea of the data, where the data is going to be at when we go looking for it, especially based on the context of the case and why we're seizing the phone or the computer in the first place. We have a pretty good idea of where that data is going to be. And especially if you've done hundreds of examinations, you know that the vast majority of users store their data in exactly the same place, in the same places generally. So once the court starts to get wise to that and realizes that, hey, these folks actually kind of know what they're looking for in a lot of cases. That doesn't mean it's true in all cases, but you may start to see the court start to catch up to that a little bit and start applying more restrictions on how we access data on these devices and how we pull it, which does imply problems with things like, we may have to start getting used to doing things like, okay, we pull all the data off the phone, but then we have a protocol in place that directs how we look at the data that's on the phone. And the reason I'm saying that this isn't me just making this up. This is literally what we do in every single case in civil litigation, because we don't have that blanket authority to just look at everything. Like, if I work for an attorney who is suing another entity on behalf of their client, we don't just immediately get access to all the data that other entity has, right? It just does not happen. There's a
Right.
whole process that plays out where they're going to say, no, here, there is some stuff that you have a right to discovery to, but then there's stuff that's not. And then there's back and forth sometimes about it. There's arguments about it where both sides, have disagreements, and every once in a while it goes to a judge where the judge decides, who gets access to what. So my point is, I think that if you're in law enforcement, you should start warming up to the idea that this is going to enter your industry if it hasn't already, where you're going to start seeing judges that are a little bit more skeptical about arguments of needing access to everything. You're going to see prosecutors that'll be a little more concerned about, you know, when you're doing search warrants or putting search warrant affidavits together, they're going to be a little bit more cognizant about, wait, are you sure this is going to be okay? Because you don't want a situation where you look at everything and now you have to argue to the judge why you looked at a bunch of stuff when you only needed access to one piece of the data that you're competent enough to have gotten access to. So there's all these different things that we need to start just preparing ourselves mentally and professionally for going forward. And some of us will complain about it. Some of us will basically argue why it's stupid or whatever. But the reality is, as a professional, we have to work within the context that we're given. We have to work within the legal frameworks that we're given.
Right. Right.
Once that happens, we just have to accept it as it is, be professional about it, and do our jobs, right? Find ways of complying with these issues and getting the job done. That's what we always do. Every 10 years, stuff like this happens, where it's either phones get harder to get into, encryption becomes a standard, the legal environment changes. This is just part of the job. So every 5 to 10 years, something like this happens, and we kind of have to just adjust to it, and it's always fine. Every time it happens, it's always fine, and we're able to do our jobs just fine. So I think that's something that, I mean, we are making predictions, so I'll predict by December 31st, we'll start to see more stronger legal kind of restrictions on how we access data. And I'm specifically talking about law enforcement, because we already
Yeah.
have it more or less in the private sector. It's really kind of law enforcement. So it's something to look for if you're in that part of the industry.
Yeah. And there's this an ongoing prediction, which, companies would love to see, obviously, but law enforcement's been really hesitant to do it, is a migration to the cloud of data. Everything's in the cloud now, except most law enforcement data is sitting on some rickety server that they're maintaining in another room that they hope doesn't go down, and they have the skills enough to maintain and keep it running. I mean, I did that. I refused cloud data when I was in. Granted, I left in 2012. Different little scope back then. Gosh, it's been that long now. But I built a server at a ZFS technology back then, and it worked great. But if I'd had a failure, I'd have been in trouble. But I think
I
it kind
always
of brings together a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, minus the last piece that you had mentioned, is that, if you're setting up on a server farm somewhere, maybe a government server farm, I don't know, I can't envision it how it's going to picture, because most people aren't going to do it yet. But I think the ideas are slowly breaking down to get there, and that's when the larger processing power and stuff is going to be available to search cases, to
sure.
just to triage a case. Hey, I'm officer out in the field. Boom, send this up. Goes to cloud data. Boop, here's the evidence. Boop, here's what you need. Done. No examiner in the thing anymore. I'm not saying examiners are going to go away, but I mean, it could. You
It's
need somebody to
highlight.
explain it.
You need to, if most of your job, if you feel like you're just pushing buttons and you don't really understand what your tools are doing or the output of them, then you should be worried.
Yeah,
You should.
yeah. On the quick stuff's what I meant. On the quick stuff, not the big cases where it requires a smart mind, but like
But
quick stuff, it doesn't even need to hit the lab. I see touching less and less of that.
I mean, we see that in the private sector too, where I've worked for companies where we collect so much email, and there's some email collections and email data that you could definitely automate if you had enough engineering incentive. Some of these e-discovery companies, if they wanted to, they could build an email collection utilities right into their software, where an attorney could potentially do the collection. There's definitely, that's not going to work for every email account. There's going to be some outliers, but there's definitely some email services out there where I remember just being like collecting email all day and being like, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Like there's API, like this service provider has APIs where you can just write code to do this
Yeah.
and just basically automate my entire job. So it's just, and again, it gets back to, will any companies actually do that? Will they put their investment and resources into doing it? That's hard to say, but I think it can definitely be done. So if you feel that, and if you're honest with yourself about the work that you're doing, always think about like, okay, could a robot do my job? Like, um, and this is true of any career, right? If you feel like the work you're doing doesn't require a whole lot of mental energy, then you're always, especially with this new age of generative AI and AI applications, you need to be considering how easy it is for your job to be replicated with some code and maybe some machine parts or whatever.
Yep. I think some of the lower level tasks, honestly, stuff the examiners don't want to do, so they may be happy just to go, yes, please. I don't care that Freddie
Yeah.
broke his protection order against Susie, and now I have to pull 3 text messages off this phone. I have homicides over here that I'm a month and a half behind on, and don't care about that so much. And it's not that they don't care. Let me rephrase that. It's just there's higher priority crimes that has to be dealt with, and very limited personnel to do it. And I think that's something that can eventually be replaced out of
Yeah.
the workflow, probably happily. I'm going to say, but as an examiner myself, we always like to kind of be in control of the
It's
data.
it's well, it's tricky with forensics, because forensics is one of the aspects of forensics that may push against that a little bit is that we have this sort of almost apprentice like structure to forensics, where entry level folks really need to work with senior level folks to learn this as a trade. And some of those low level things, like that's like the perfect place for an entry level person to start. So it's almost like you'll have entry level people competing with the some, if these AI frameworks exist or come about, you'd almost have like entry level people being like, we usually do this with AI, but since you're learning, we'll just have you do it for now, for the next couple of weeks, so you can kind of learn how it works. So stuff like that will kind of be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that would be. I was worried about us not making the hour, and it's like 10 minutes after. And I just looked up and going, "Holy crap! Where did that go?"
Yeah.
I know we went off on rather large AI tangents, but do you have anything real quick that you have on your list that you wanted to talk about?
Um, just not as significant as ones I mentioned. I had one down here that you already mentioned, which is like more stuff is going to just continue to move into the cloud,
Hmm.
which is more general. That's not a very specific prediction, but I think that's just generally. We're seeing that with our customers, where even law enforcement, they're a lot more receptive to doing things in the cloud now than they used to be. Um, I've been making this prediction for years now, but I think eventually smartphones are going to lose wired port access. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I keep saying it's going to happen within the next 5 years, but I think the 2024 could be a year where we finally um, smartphones could change significantly, where our normal collection methods just don't work anymore. I think that's going to eventually happen. It's pretty wild for me to predict that now, but
Bill's
I
like,
can definitely.
no.
The only reason that iPhones still have a physical port is because I think they're literally just waiting for all of society to catch up to having data in the cloud. Like that's it.
Hmm.
Like I think if Apple wanted to snap their fingers and just remove the
Hey,
port
buddy.
from an iPhone, I think they would do it, because I
Hmm.
think they would force everybody to just update and like back up to the cloud, and basically say, hey, if you want to connect your phone to your computer, do it through NFC on a MacBook or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Um,
think, what do I actually plug my phone in for? I never plug it.
yeah,
My CarPlay. That's the only time it ever gets plugged in, really. Yeah.
right. And mine, I have CarPlay too, but it's wireless.
Are
So
yours just
like
wireless? Yeah, I need to update a phone.
you just need to wait. So that's what I'm saying. Like I think Apple's literally just waiting to do it until they feel like it's our the commercial market has reached a certain critical mass of like, okay, we think the market's big enough to where people aren't going to switch to Android because we don't have a port anymore, right? But you're seeing small steps to it, right? Like they didn't want to change the Lightning port to USB-C, right? And I think it was literally just because I don't want to say this. I don't think this is why, but I think one of the factors is they're planning on getting rid of that port anyway in the future. So I think they're kind of like thinking, why change it when we're just going to get rid of it in a few years?
Yeah.
Um, but I do
And
think,
then,
just think about it, like I never plug my phone into anything.
no.
You use the magnet based charging port now. I think it even charges faster using that than the actual port does.
Hmm.
So
I don't know.
yeah.
Mine
So
doesn't
anyway,
have the
I don't.
fancy magnet one. I still got an older iPhone where I got to place it just right onto my little charger thing. And then, oh, there it goes. Don't
Yeah,
move it. Yeah.
yeah. But
Oh,
that's my.
well,
I've been making that prediction for a while. Since we are making, I'll say that's going to happen this year, but it's not going to happen this year. But for the purpose of the podcast, Apple's getting rid of their ports on their iPhone this year, so get ready for that.
there you go. Now, because it's interesting, there's a lot of things, especially on Apple's end, with just that topic. That's how they access the phone for diagnostics and stuff. They'd have to, for physical diagnostics, like if the operating system fails or some part of it fails, they can still access different modes
Yeah,
and stuff. That'd be interesting to see how they'd achieve that and
I
without a
fully.
port.
They're one
I'm
of the
curious
biggest,
now.
most successful technological companies in human history. I am 100% confident they can do all that shit. I mean, all that. Excuse me, all that stuff wirelessly. Like, I do not believe for a second that is a hamstring for them. I think it's just they have it there now because they haven't switched over to a
Yeah.
wireless system yet. That's going to be a day
Huh.
where when these things suddenly turn wireless, are all of your current expensive extraction tools just now going to be obsolete? And, how are we going to pull data off these things? So we have to. It could be a day where we can only get iPhone data from the cloud,
Hmm.
where it not be possible to get it from the phone anymore.
There'll be a
So
hidden data port somewhere for a little while, and that we'll have to crack into and
do it from directly from the board or something
or
like
terminals.
first,
Bill,
the first generations will still have like the tech on the board itself. It just won't have the port anymore, so people will kind of hotwire it. But
yeah.
then eventually we'll cover that up too. So you'll see something like that eventually. But yeah, I
Then we'll
do
have to
think
call
that's going to
Bill and say, Bill, we saw you make like parts of a phone work. Can you get this data? So
So
yeah.
is if a lot of your work is around mobile forensics and pulling data off mobile, I would start thinking about a plan for the next 5 years. Like start thinking about what happens to my career and my job if I suddenly can't get data off of a phone anymore, and start planning in the next 5 years of what that looks like for you. Because it's definitely, I'm not saying it will happen, but it's a definite possibility for sure.
That's interesting. That's interesting, man. There's several things I'm sitting here thinking of that we don't have just have time to cover. We could probably spend all afternoon just
Sure. Yeah.
coming up with ideas and talking about all the changes that could happen in that. Because, IoT forensics, for example, we really touch on a lot of that. That was big. How many years ago when that first came out, and people were predicting huge. And we honestly, I didn't see. Of course, I don't do exams anymore. I don't know how much people actually investigate the IoT devices that aren't a standard like tablet, don't fall in the basic categories, but the amount of data that's there alone is probably huge. So that'd be interesting to dig further into. So maybe we can revisit this topic like in 6 months, and we'll see if anything's like come close to what we've talked about here, and then we can add additional stuff in 6 months as it moves forward.
Sure.
So that would be awesome to have you back on and kind of revisit this.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that'll be really, really cool to see if the iPhone has removed the wireless port in 6 months.
Yeah, if they do it. That Matt Danner, damn him.
I put it out in the universe and they did it. Yeah.
That's right. And they did it. It's all their fault. All right. Well, Matt, man, thank you so very much for hanging out with us today. And like I said, this was our first one that we've done in several months. We're going to try to do these more and more frequently again, but I can't. My promise last year was every week. We did it for a couple months every week, and then man, it just got to be so much. I couldn't keep up. Mainly the biggest problem was finding guests. Was finding different guests throughout. Matt will come on every week, and it'll just be the Matt and Kevin show the whole time.
Exactly.
But
I would, because this is fun for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was my previous life. I was in radio. I just sit and talk all day. I'm good at that.
Nice.
It goes random, and it's easy with you because you're a smart guy and you tell a lot of things that I don't know about. So it makes it really easy. So Megan has renamed our a podcast for us there, Matt. The Forensic Tangent Hour.
That's one of my worst personality traits, because I can talk about so many different things. I always take conversations into crazy random tangents. It's like I'm working on. That's one of my personal things to work on this year, is to like stop taking so many conversations into different tangents, just like this conversation right now.
That's what the Hubcast really is all about, though. I mean, we just talk what's on examiners' minds and go from there, and hope there's some crowd interaction, which we did have. So thanks both Bill and Megan for adding that to it. And there's a few other lurkers in there. Our show watch went down because I hadn't done one in a while, so I feel a little bit bad about that. But we'll bring it back up, and by 6 months when we revisit this, we should have our show back to where it needs to be again.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. Well, hey, man, hang out. Don't go anywhere. And everyone else, thank you very much. If you want to be a guest on this little razzmatazz thing that we do here called a Hubcast, then reach out to us at Cyber Social Hub. You can reach me directly at kevin@cybersocialhub.com. I do answer my emails. Try to, the best that I can. Just send me an email and say, hey, I'd like to come on and talk about this. And sure, hopefully I know something about that. If not, you're going to be the one talking the whole time. But other than that, we'll see you guys. Hope you had an awesome holidays that we went through. I haven't talked to anyone since then. And then New Year as well. And we'll see you guys here at the next one, which is hopefully going to be this month. Our prediction is for this is more forensic talk shows like this at least twice a month. There we go. Oh, if I don't kill myself. Matt, thanks so very much. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again. This is good. Thanks everybody for joining and listening.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.